Lights on.
We're working on it.
Yeah, okay. We're getting
All right.
ready.
There we go. There we go. There we go.
Hey.
It's a man who gets what he
All right,
wants.
better with it, avoid.
Hi, everybody. My name is. Yeah, exactly. We got them up. He's directing the heck out of this thing. My name is Grae Drake. I am Ms. Moviefone from Moviefone.com, and I thank you so much. It is an honor to be here tonight to celebrate the legendary calamity in the sewers, Alligator. I don't just put this kind of headband on for anyone, okay? I would like to introduce you to the gentleman that I am sitting next to. They need no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway, because our film's director, Teague, is sitting right here next to me. And then over there on the end, just directing the hell out of this Q&A, is Mr. Bill Lustig. And you know Bill's work from Maniac and the Robert Forster film Vigilante, and he is an official Alligator enthusiast #1. Is that true, Bill?
If I'm not, I should be.
I am completely obsessed with this film for many, many years, and I think it says something about me as a person that I love nature gone wrong so much. It's my favorite genre. I'm a city girl. I think nature's gross, just in general. And so let's just start at the very, very beginning. We have a lot of stuff to go through, but let's talk first, Louis, about how you got interested and attached to this project right out of the get-go.
Let's see what happened. I had just finished doing a film for Roger Corman called The Lady in Red, and my agent sent me a script for Alligator, the first draft, which doesn't resemble the script that we used for this film at all. And I love the idea because I grew up in New York City where with that myth that people, I don't know if it was a myth or true, that, you know, back in the 50s, in the back page of the New York Times books or magazine section, they advertised miniature alligators, the perfect gift to give to your children for Christmas. And the problem was they weren't miniature alligators, they were baby alligators. One of the characteristics of alligators is that they are born perfectly proportioned. And so, but what would happen, since they weren't miniature, they were just baby alligators, they would start to grow and people had to get rid of them. And I'm sure more than a few wound up being flushed down toilets. So I loved that idea, and that was the basis of the story. The rest of the story made no sense at all. And I agreed to do it if I could bring in a writer and redo the script, and the producer, Brandon Chase, agreed, and I just finished working with John Sayles on The Lady in Red at New World. John came in, and the rest is history. Well, what happened with John is great. He's such a fantastic writer. First of all, we haven't asked, how many people in here have seen Alligator?
Oh, right. Okay, great. Thank God.
Almost every hand went up. Great.
Yeah, so close.
Well, John, he won the MacArthur Genius Award. He's a great writer. He's a great filmmaker. And he had written a terrific script for The Lady in Red. So he and I got together, and he asked me what I'd like to do with it. And I just, we really talked for about a half an hour over coffee. And basically I said, I always like monster films when the monster is a metaphor for something. So let's give the hero a problem, and the monster will be a metaphor, whatever problem the hero is trying to deal with, and in the course of the story, he solves that problem. We talked a few more minutes, but basically that's all we said. All I said to him. He flew off to Tokyo for something, and apparently he wrote the script on the plane, because he delivered it. He delivered the script to me when he got back, and we had to make almost no changes at all except editing for length.
Because his was considerably longer than the final product, right?
It was a lot longer. We had to drop a lot of scenes because having just come out of the Roger Corman University of Filmmaking, you don't waste a penny when you work for Roger Corman.
Right.
And I did not want to shoot a single scene that wasn't going to make it into the film. So I pretty much everything I shot is in the movie. and a lot of, nothing wound up on the editing room floor, but a lot wound up on my office floor in script form.
Now, Bill, let's go back to the very beginning for you and talk about one of your first when did you first see it? What's your first interaction with Alligator?
Well, I first saw it in at a film market in Italy called Moviefone. It no longer exists. And the moment, the open, since all of you guys have seen it, when Bob goes to the sewer and is investigating the murder of Ed Norton, I just cracked up. I thought I said, I'm in love with this movie. That's it, I'm in love with it. But actually, why I'm here as Bob Forster's proxy, and he's standing by to say hi to everyone. So, did you guys hear that?
This is amazing.
Bill,
Bob!
how are you, Bill?
I'm sitting here with an audience that's all...
Technical genius. Can you hear me well? If you can't, I will stick my earphones in.
No, Bob,
can you hear me?
sound perfect. You sound perfect.
Perfect.
I'm sitting
Louis
next...
Teague.
I'm
Sorry,
sitting
go
next
ahead.
to him.
Robert,
Excellent.
we miss
Louis
you.
Teague.
Where are you?
I'm in West Hollywood, but not as close as I want to be. Camilla invited me a long time ago, and I said yes, and then I bungled it. But believe me, if I could be there, I would be. But I am so delighted to be here where you are. And let me make this thing, I'll start quick with the best thing about Alligator. Louis, I may have told you this once, but I ran into, who did I run into?
What did you
Stephen
do?
King. I ran into Stephen King in Cannes, France at the festival. And he said to me, Alligator is my favorite horror movie of all time. Now, yes, oh God, what a thing. This is one of the pictures, this is one of the gems in my career. I've done some gems for Bill Lustig, but I did 2 gems for Louis Teague. I worked on a movie with Louis called Avalanche. It was a disaster movie. Everybody probably, it was written and directed by Corey Allen and produced by Roger Corman. And during the shooting of the picture, Louis and I were up on a mountainside shooting a shot that involved a cannon. We were on a platform. And it was meant to let the avalanche fall down so that the village below was not as in danger. And while we were up there, Louis said, I have a project that I'm putting together, and I've got a small part in it. And and that may be of the moment you mentioned it, Louis, but I said, Jesus, I'd be delighted to work with you again. And so when it came time, he sent me the script to Lady in Red. And Lady in Red is one of the gems of my career. And when I told my agents that I wanted to do this picture, they said, oh, no, it's not big enough. It's not a big part. And I said, wait a minute. Louis Teague asked me to do it, and I said yes. And so when it comes time to, I will show up. And I told my agents that that I did not need to be billed even, but that I would show up because Louis had asked me, and I did. You may remember that, Louis.
I sure do. If I may
yes,
add a few details.
Sure.
When you were standing on that platform of the 75 millimeter recoilless rifle, and
Yeah.
I was shooting it, I fell in love with your acting talent. And I said,
Oh, God.
Bob, I said,
It's great to
Bob,
be overrated. Oh, it's
I
great
know,
to be
it's totally
overrated.
overrated, and I've been accused of having bad taste many times.
Good.
But I said,
Yes.
I remember saying to you, Bob, I'm going to be directing myself someday, and I would love to work with you. And you said, well, when that day rolls around, send me the script. So
Yep.
when I was starting Lady in Red, I called you up, and you were doing a movie at Disney. I think it was The Black Hole.
The Black Hole.
Yes, and you were real busy, but you graciously said, send me the script. I sent you
You
the
bet.
script, and I followed up a few days later, and you said, I like the script. What part did you want me to play? And I said, any part you want. And you picked the Dillinger character.
Yep.
That ring a bell?
Oh, sure,
Okay.
sure. It was a delightful character in a terrific movie. And my agent said, "Well, so I already said that." All right, so that brings us to Lady in Red.
Right.
But eventually, then came Alligator. Do I have the sequence correct?
Correct. That was my next. Yes, that's correct. That was my next film.
Yes. And when I read Alligator, I remembered that when I first went to New York City in 1964, one of the first things I heard about New York City was that there were alligators in the sewer. And I couldn't believe it. I said, no, how could that be? But people insisted that there were alligators, and they got in the sewer because somebody in the circus a kid bought an alligator, and somebody's mother flushed it down the toilet, and that's why they were there, and they could eat rats, and they could eat insects, and whatever was down in the sewer, and it was warm enough, and so forth. So I held that in my mind. I said, it cannot be true. It cannot be true. And then I got the script to Alligator, and I said, holy moly, here is a movie about one of the great urban myths that I could not believe, but was delighted to participate in. You may remember, Louis, that on the very first day of production, you were generous to me in ways that directors are not ordinarily generous to actors. I told you that I had a friend at Schwab's drugstore who had told me, Lenny DeJohn, an old actor, and at the time he said to me, Bob, he said, you know, I'm a friend of yours. I said, yeah, Lenny, what? He said, Bob, I'm really a friend of yours. I said, Lenny, what is it? He said, Bob, you haven't made it yet. You look better with hair. You better do something about it. And so, on the first day of production, I came prepared with a few hair jokes. And I went to Louis and I said, Louis, may I please ask Sidney Lustig to participate in this hair joke? And you gave me permission. And I told Sidney what to say. I said, Sidney, when you see me, take a good look at my hair. It was receding and there was less of it. And I said, tell me, give me some advice. Tell me to let it grow long on the side, whip it over the front, and nobody will notice. And so I threw that at Sidney, and we played the joke. There were a number of other jokes, which I kept coming up with, and Louis was generous to me and allowed me to improvise a bunch of those jokes. And when I first saw the movie in the rough cut, you will remember this, Louis. The hair jokes were gone, and I thought, oh well, they didn't work, and so the guy knew enough to get him out of the picture. And then when I saw the second rough cut of the picture, you told me that friends of yours, directors and people knowledgeable in the business, said, you know, those hair jokes were pretty good. You should leave them in the picture. And so Louis Teague put back whatever hair jokes you will see. You haven't seen the picture yet tonight, have you? No. You're going to see the picture in minutes. Well, the first hair joke, and there were probably more than 6 or 8 of them, but Louis selected the best ones and put them in the picture until the very end when I am doing a scene with Robin Riker. And it's a sensitive scene, and I've set it up as good as possible, and she makes a remark, and I tell her how sensitive I am about my hair, and she and in any event, that was the payoff scene. Robin Riker, who was one of the great actresses, you populated this movie with some terrific actors, including Sidney and Robin, and those hair jokes, they certainly made many of the reviews of the movie, and I could not have been more delighted and confirmed, and I owe it to Louis Teague to have given me the permission necessary to do those jokes. There's probably some that I don't remember, but the thing that I do remember is that Stephen King said it was his favorite horror movie ever.
Hey, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Those jokes were great, and I love it when actors add material that works. When sometimes we call it improv, sometimes I would just call it adding good material. Would you talk a little bit about doing, because your performance was so genuine in that film, as in all your films, can you talk a little bit about John Sayles' dialogue and the way he wrote dialogue that may have contributed to your acting?
Nobody writes better dialogue than John Sayles, as you are well aware. You gave me a gift, the size of which cannot be well exaggerated, and so John Sayles, and I didn't do much with it. All I did was try to be believable as the character that was written. I think John Sayles, did he write Piranha, Lewis?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so he had already written a movie of this type, and this is the big number of the movies of that type, and this is one of the great gems of my career. And so it always starts with the script, and it always ends on the way always a day ends. You get your shots. You fight for a day's worth of work, where the actor does shots. It's not, you don't shoot a movie, you shoot a series of shots. Each one is like a magic trick. You learn the magic trick, and when you hear action, you try to deliver that magic trick as flawlessly as you can do. And when you get done with it, you hear cut, print, move on to the next shot. So the actor's job is not a job of shooting movies, but a shot of doing a day's worth of shots, a small, finite number of them. How many? 15, 20, 30 shots. And nowadays, when they shoot 2 cameras, you probably got twice that many. But shooting shots made from material that was written by John Sayles is, one of the joys and one of the gems. And as I said early on, this is a gem in my career, as was Lady in Red, a beautiful a beautiful story about John Dillinger. And who played Dillinger? The guy who had the battery on his shoulder. Who played Dillinger? Robert Conrad. Yes, who I worked with later on, and who was generous to me. So let's just say that Conrad played Dillinger, and I played a nice character that did some a little bit of dirty work. I think I killed somebody. Did I do that, Lewis? Could be. So there we go. Let's stop there, Bob.
Okay. Anybody have a question for Bob? Or no? Yes.
I just want to say I loved you in Breaking Bad as the desperate, the disappearer.
Oh, what a lucky guy I am. They gave me a part that I left a guy in a cabin with a barrel full of money, and it was a character that the writer of the show said the character can be trusted not to come back and steal the barrel of money. It is one of the things in my career that I am, another thing that I am grateful for, getting the kinds of parts that you have given me and that Bill Lustig has given me. I'm a very, very lucky guy. So let's just say on that account, I am thrilled and happy to still be working.
Well, Bob, everyone is looking forward to seeing the movie, and thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Camilla. Thank you, Louis. I'm sorry Robin isn't there, but thank you all for being there. I am a truly lucky guy.
All right, let's hear it for Bob. All right, take care, Bob.
I'll see you on the next bounce, Bill.
See you soon. Bye.
See you soon. You bet.
Oh, it's so easy to be obsessed with Robert Forster.
That made this Q&A so easy. What a
So
great
easy.
talk.
I want to make sure that before we start the film that we talk about the unbelievable effects in the movie, because it gives so much personality to Alligator that I'd like to talk about on set. I know I heard that there was some trouble. There was kind of a mechanical alligator. He kind of acted up like the Jaws shark did.
When I came on this project, as I mentioned, I was given two things. I was given a script that I almost completely changed, and I was also given a full-size 35-foot alligator that had been prefabricated before I was brought on the show. It was rubber on a bamboo frame.
Wow.
And it was designed so that two men could get inside, one in the front legs and one in the back.
Wow.
When we took it off down from the roof where it was hanging, it completely fell apart to dust. The rubber was so old. So we manufactured a new one, a replacement by a special effects guy that wanted to make sure the new one did not fall apart when we started using it. So instead of a bamboo frame, it had a steel frame. And instead of being 1/4-inch thick rubber form, it was probably about 2 inches thick. Well, it must have weighed about 1/2 ton. And we put 2 NFL football players in there, 2 linebackers, to do a test to see how it would work. And I got to tell you, I was looking forward to making a scary movie. That was my objective. I wanted to make this movie scary. And so we set up the new special effects alligator outside the production office out in the valley and set up 3 cameras, but no little cameras like this, big film, 35 millimeter film cameras. And it took us about 3-4 hours to set up the shot with all the cameras and the alligator and get the NFL football players inside and get them suited up and everything before we could actually shoot the test, in which we rolled the cameras, and once we rolled the cameras, I yelled action loudly so the guys inside the suit could hear me. And now a real alligator close to the ground takes long strides like that. Well, with these 2 football players inside, they could only take little steps kind of like that. And as soon as the alligator started to move, about 300 people who had gathered to watch this test all burst into laughter.
Oh, no.
And that's when I realized it may not be scary, but we're going to make this funny.
Yeah, there you go.
My objective changed at that moment.
And there were a lot of different ways that you achieved all the shots, right? Like some were miniature, and then and there are a couple of really great shots where people are getting eaten, straight up eaten. And it's so fantastic because, spoiler alert, sorry for the 2 of you that haven't seen it yet, you're in for a treat, because these people are getting consumed, and they're very long takes and they're very wide shots. And unlike stuff that you see today, you see everything in these shots, and it's impressive and it's frightening. And what was that? That had to be a different model, right? That wasn't the big one you're talking about.
You never see the alligator moving and chewing in the same shot.
Aha!
It was pretty good. As long as it was stationary and we could wedge somebody between the jaws of the giant alligator, we could convincingly get a shot. And again, this is where working for Roger Corman, all my experience there came in handy. As my friend Alan Arkush out here, famous director, also for the Roger Corman School. Hi, Alan.
Yay!
I actually cut the trailer for Lady in Red.
Oh, great. Well, thank you. That made my career. That trailer.
Big family.
There were so many great guys and women working. I had dinner with Tina Hirsch the other day, who directed a Roger Corman film. But working for Roger Corman, we learned how to do things in shortcuts and fake things with montages. And since I also directed a lot of second unit for Roger before he let me direct the feature, I had a lot of experience learning how to make do with what we had. You know, you had, if the alligator can't, any shots where the alligator's moving, we actually used miniature baby alligators.
Oh.
Yeah, in miniature sets. And when it was chewing people, or close shots of the jaws clamping down on people, that was done with the large mechanical alligator.
The Corman School that you're talking about makes me think about the wedding scene and when there's a very mean guy stuck in a car. And it's really effective filmmaking if you break it down scene by scene. So keep that in mind when you're watching it.
Yeah, it's all done in pieces. And since almost all of you have seen the film already, it's not a spoiler alert. I like the way Grae started off by describing the film as nature gone awry, I think you said, because John Sayles came up with a theme which is really that the alligator is a product of urban pollution, and that when it grows to its full size, what it does is it eats its way back up the food chain till finally in the final scene at the wedding, it devours the head of the chemical company who had been testing the chemicals on dog carcasses, that growth hormones on dog carcasses that created this large alligator in the first place. So it's sort of a divine justice and retribution that takes place.
Let's talk about the score.
That is so
It's a whole
painful because James Horner of Titanic fame wrote the score for Lady in Red and did a brilliant job. And so when I did my second film, Alligator, I invited him to write the score for Alligator. And he wrote the complete score for Alligator and was recording it. They'd finished arranging it, and I think they were beginning to record it when the Composers Union went out on strike. And he couldn't deliver anything because they were on strike, even though he had a lot of completed pieces available. And the producer of the film, who financed it and was also releasing it, Brandon Chase, wasn't willing to wait. I mean, we could have waited. There was nothing at stake. We had no release date. Matter of fact, it never really got released. The history, really, the history of this film is Brandon. We made this film for $1.5 million, and before it was finished, Brandon sold it to ABC for 3 viewings for $3 million. So without ever releasing it, he had doubled his investment, and therefore he had no desire to spend money on prints and marketing and all that kind of stuff and dealing with crooked theater owners. So he was just fine. He was fine just taking the $3 million and running. I told you I'd tell you a story about Andrew Saris. So I was really scared that nobody would get to see the film as a film. So I went to New York with the 12 film cans in my luggage and started banging on film critics' doors. And Andrew Saris is the only one that showed up for a screening that I set up in New York City. And that Wednesday, he came out with a review. It was a rave review. Now, if that wasn't good enough, that following Sunday, in the Arts and Leisure section of the New York Times, above the fold, he had another second review of Alligator. So that there are 2 things that I give most credit to for my career. Maybe 3 things, but 2 main things are, well, there are a whole bunch of things, but John Sayles was a big factor in writing that script. Robert Forster for playing the lead in it, and Andrew Saris for publicizing it. You know, it was a stroke of luck that I happened to reach him before he went out to the Hamptons on vacation, and he wrote that review, and Just as a footnote, I discovered when he died, he had clips of some of his favorite films screened at his funeral, and Alligator was one of them. So,
That's amazing.
yes.
And I would love to know which scene it was. That would be, but I was saying, I'm just going to pretend that it's when there's like a really intense moment when the alligator comes onto the streets of New York City. I mean, to Chicago. And I hope it's that scene.
I don't know.
I don't
wish
know.
knew.
I'll pretend. Bill, I just want to know what kind of, is there anything from Alligator or from this time in cinema that really informed the movies that you made? Because you went on to work with Bob again in Vigilante.
Yeah, I worked with Bob several times because he's such a pleasure to work with. And he really, it was interesting because I look at Alligator as being the very best of the exploitation films of the B movies made in Los Angeles. I always had a prejudice against the California. They all look like TV movies, whereas Alligator felt like a movie. Yeah. You know, it didn't feel like a TV movie, like a lot of the AIP films and Crown International, all that whole period. I mean, it's interesting to me that, you know, when I go to see a lot of contemporary horror films, it's rare, if ever, that you get a script as good as what John Sayles wrote for you. I mean, it's just, they come up with an idea and they go out and make a movie, but they don't really drill down. There's really not the depth. And in Alligator, there's a real depth of characters, and everybody, all the characters have their own little song in the movie, you know. I love Henry Silva, by the way.
Oh, so great.
He's so good. I love Henry Silva. And everyone has their beats, you know, in the movie. And, you know, I often don't see that. You know, that was something that was a characteristic of Larry Cohen's writing and these really good genre writers. And
I agree completely. This movie, I just keep saying, it has a lot of personality.
Yeah.
It's so memorable and it's so interesting on so many levels. And also, it looks fantastic. There's an effect towards the end. I keep going back to the effects because it looks so good. Even when people are missing limbs. How does that work in this movie? Because I know how it, but I mean, because God, it looks real. Do you recall how that stuff was done?
Yeah, that was one of the first examples of CGI in Hollywood films.
Really?
No. No.
You could tell me anything.
No, I cast a guy with no legs, and we ripped off his prosthetic legs in the shot. So
Honestly, it was so real, I wondered if that's what it was.
Yeah.
So now you know. You'll know when you see that gentleman. He contributed greatly to this film. It's about all the time that we have. We need to get this film started. What do you say?
oh, thank you for coming.
Bill Lustig and Louis Teague, everybody, thank you so much for being here, and enjoy Alligator.